Howdy readers, I'm Jason, this is Chapter and Verse, and this is my companion video on Disagreement to the video that Lukas from Totally Pretentious put up earlier today, which I will link below. And so the idea for these companion videos came about when, I don't know, it was like a week and a half ago, somewhere around there. That so I was kind of in the home stretch, I think, of reading Lincoln and Bardo by George Saunders, and I sent Lukas a message on Voxer, and as he says in his video, Lukas and I message each other a lot on Voxer. Sometimes we'll spend an hour and a half just boxing back and forth with each other, but I hadn't realized that he had read it before, and I was absolutely loving that book, and so I just sent him a message on Voxer, essentially telling him that if you haven't read this, you should. I think it's a work of genius, etc., etc. And so when he sent me a Vox back, telling me not only that he disliked the book, but that he thought it was maybe the most disappointing reading experience of his life, I was initially shocked, and if we're honest, any of us, I think, would admit to that, right? That whenever we find out that somebody we respect and love and admire and whose taste we trust, dislikes a book that we love or loves a book that we dislike or hate, we're initially surprised by that. But then we settle into wondering what accounts for the difference of opinion. Because something must. And so I'm going to be honest here and share with you guys that when I was in my 20s, if somebody hated a book that I really loved, I felt like it betrayed a flaw in their thinking, right? So clearly they weren't up to snuff, that they weren't ready for the book or what have you. And if somebody loved a book that I hated, in my 20s, I thought, well, they just must be an idiot. But as I've gotten older, and I'm in my early 40s right now, soon to be in my mid 40s, here in about a week or so, I turn 44. It has become clearer and clearer to me that that's not really what's going on. It's not about people not being ready for a book or being somehow intellectually unprepared or inferior to oneself. It's not a question of shortcomings in either myself or in someone else. That isn't actually what's going on. When two people who really admire and respect each other and have a lot of faith in each other's tastes in art disagree dramatically about a book, as Lukas and I did with Lincoln and Bardo, and I can name other examples, right? There are certain booktubers whom I really respect who have been engaged recently in raking a certain Cormac McCarthy novel over the coals, a certain Cormac McCarthy novel that is so important to me it's difficult for me to articulate why. I think what's happening is that we're all bringing different tastes to the books that we read, and maybe more importantly, I think we're all bringing different life experiences to the books that we read. I have no idea what it is about Lincoln and Bardo that really resonated with me. On some level, I can chalk it up to, okay, so I like what George Saunders does with language. Okay, so that makes sense. And maybe Lukas is looking for a writer to do different things with language than what George Saunders is doing. But I don't think that accounts for it all. I think my love of Lincoln and Bardo has something to do with what I bring to it, right? So any reaction we have to a book, whether it's love or adoration or distaste or hatred, I think it has as much to do with what we bring to the party as it has to do with what the book brings to the party. And so it's not a question of just taste or, having specific preoccupations regarding literature. being hung up on this theme or that theme, or, loving when a writer does this or that, or X, Y, or Z with language. It isn't just that, right? So I think that there's an alchemy that's created, an alchemy that happens when, this person brings his or her life experience to this particular text. And sometimes those things kind of explode in really wonderful, unexpected, mysterious ways. And other times it falls completely flat, right? Like a souffle that doesn't rise in the oven or something like this. And I'm not sure how we account for that. I don't know what it is in my history that makes me predisposed to love Lincoln and the Bardo as much as I have, or the Road as much as I do. But there is something there, right? There is some kind of magic that happens between a reader and a book. It's not just a book's greatness or ambition and a reader's ability to recognize or apprehend that greatness or ambition, or to appreciate that ambition. That's not only what's happening when a reader has a strong response to a book, a strong positive response to a book. It's also just something more mysterious, and I think it behooves us to recognize that. So when we have disagreements on books or on art with people whose taste we trust and whose opinions we respect, disagreements should remind us, I think, of just how important it is to leave ourselves open to having our ideas about art complicated. I can't count the number of times over the years where either myself or someone else in my book club has seen their view of the text in question altered or changed or enlarged or diminished slightly based on the conversations that we have within the book club. And oftentimes it's not even the conversations that we have with other people. Oftentimes when I sit down to write a review of a novel in my book club, I write myself into my understanding of the text. I'll approach my post thinking, well, this is a strong 4-star novel. And I feel this way about it, and this way about it, and this way about it. But as I write, oftentimes, and sometimes it's with the earlier posts from the other members kind of in the back of my mind, as I write, I will find myself persuading myself to revise my opinion somewhat. I'll write my way into a deeper, more complicated understanding of the book than I had earlier. And it's not even just in my book club, even here on BookTube. So when I sat down to write my notes on my buddy read video of The Buried Giant, right, the buddy read that I did with Robert from Bardo Hordes, there was a dryer. I wasn't sure how I felt about the novel, but through the process of taking notes and going back through the novel and revisiting it, I felt like I came to a much clearer, more precise understanding of the novel. And that was wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful. And frankly, that's what disagreement should do. Okay? So when we disagree with people here on BookTube, those disagreements should force us back to the text and should demand of us that we pay closer attention. At the very least, we should lay out the points of disagreement between us regarding the book under discussion, and we should go back and we should see if there's any merit in what the other person is saying. And if there is any merit on a specific point, we should frankly open ourselves up to the possibility of having a kind of monkey wrench thrown into our feelings about the book. And that may not happen. We may come out from the whole thing with with our opinion on the novel still intact, but at the very least it should be complicated. And that's really, I think, what we should be doing here on BookTube, is complicating each other's ideas about the books that we love or hate. And if we can't do that, right, so if we create a kind of hermetically sealed bubble in which we, determine what we like and what we hate and why, then what are we doing here? Because it should be about conversation, it should be about community, and it should be about arriving at opinions that have greater nuance than what we brought to the discussion in the first place. That should really, in the end, be the point, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my cheese has slid off the cracker a little bit on this particular topic. But regardless, let me know what you think in the comments below. And check out Lukash's video because it's wonderful. It's one of my favorite videos I've seen that have gone up in the last couple of months from anybody. So give it a look. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Adios.